This is boiler control systems. Introduction, type of controls, general requirements, control loops, appendix for references. Alright, purpose and scope. This course provided an introduction for the criteria for the design, heating plant, instrumentation. Heating plant contains one or more of the boilers plant of this individual plant serving a single building, compact group buildings, or essential plant serve with many of the building's facilities through an existing distribution system. Heating plant instrumentation is discussed in general. Saturated steam power boiling heater plant. Typical saturated steam power plant boiler heating plant discussed will operate with a design system steam pressure between 15 psi gauge to 300 psi gauge with a heating capacity greater than 400,000 BTUs an hour. Information provided may also be applicable to low, medium, high temperature hot water heating plants, but does not cover all requirements of those plants, such as control of water pressurization and circulation. Information also may be applicable to superheated steam power plants, but does not cover all the requirements of those plants of the steam extraction, reheating steam turbine, and cooling water controls. Instrumentation rapidly change field of the options available to choosing designing plant instrumentation is numerous. Boiling plant includes a large number of instrumentation items, all of which are specified with the detail of the procurement of the boiler plant. The course does not attempt to cover all the details, rather its purpose to present general guidelines for selecting, designing instrumentation of boiler plant. Alright, definitions. High heating boiler. A boiler operated at pressure not exceeding 15 psi gauge steam for low to hot temperatures, at pressures not exceeding 10.9 or 100 psi gauge heating temperatures not exceeding 250 degrees for hot water. High pressure power boiler. Power boiler operated with a pressure exceeding 300 psi gauge steam with a high temperature hot water at pressures exceeding 160 psi gauge temperatures exceeding 350 degrees for water. Hot water, high temperature hot water must exceed the saturation plus 250 psi gauge cultivated. Our boiler operating pressure more than 15 psi gauge, but not more than 300 psi gauge for steam medium hot temperature hot water at pressures not exceeding 300 psi gauge. Temperatures are not exceeding 350 gauge for water medium temperature hot water must exceed saturation pressure plus 20 psi gauge added to avoid cavitation. Our types of controls. General the controls for the pneumatic, analog, digital with the combination of the three older design utilized pneumatic control with the local control loops. Analog control systems were industrial and standard with a short time before the quickly being replaced by the digital control system. Present industry standards is digital control system, programmable logic control, or a direct digital controller to provide digital control log based on information gathered with electronic sensors input responding with electric control of the pneumatic electrical powered valves and dampers. Controls and selection. Choose the type of the control that will do the job most economically. This includes the total cost of the lifetime of the equipment and also the capability of the control of the existing plants. Easy for the operation, making with the plant personnel familiarizing with the training with the consider of the unique station with the high electromagnetic field, where AMF is shielding fiber optic data transmission. Pneumatic controls are required with obtaining the latest technology should not be used with the main criteria of the selection of the control. The following guidelines selecting the type of the control. The microprocessor digital type controls should be used with a new design with a particular with a large number of control loops involved with the consideration should also be given with the microprocessor digital type of the control of the place in the pneumatic control system that have achieved the life expectancy. Pneumatic controls should be used to hazard area, but they may be used with the expansion of the existing tank with the design of the actuator found with the control item with the design. In general, the pneumatic actuation larger valve with a larger number of the valve that must be effective with the electronic actuation analog log device, the pneumatic receiver, the new control with the electrical thermometer, the controls should not be considered for the new designs because of environmental consideration, temperature, humidity in which the controls will be installed. Pneumatic characteristics. Pneumatic characteristics are involved primarily with the pneumatic power system, the valve, the dampers, and most of the case of the new design should incorporate the electronic control signal with the operating supply pressure of the pneumatic instruments are defined in the ANSI ISA S7001 quality standard with the instrument air supply pressure. Plant instruments are typically available at 90 psi gauge instrument are typically operate with a 20 psi gauge supply with a standard pneumatic control signal with a 3 to 15 psi gauge. Standard pressure of the diaphragm actuators at 15 to 30 psi gauge. Standard pressure piston operators at 90 psi gauge. Design consideration piston operation with the use of the dampers for the control valve with the pneumatic dampers. The pneumatic device operate with a normal 90 psi gauge air supply with a will operate at minimum pressure with 60 psi gauge with a standing maximum pressure 110 psi gauge. Servicing tubing side with a 3/8 of an inch outside diameter of the copper stainless steel tubing with a single transmission of 200 feet and over for the shorter lines, a 1/4 inch over the outside diameter of the copper with the stainless steel tubing. Control distance. The pneumatic control can be used up to 200 feet without any special provision. For the 300 feet with a valve that has a positioner, volume booster must be with a distance of between 200 and 300 feet. If the valve does not have the positioner, use the electronic signal in the valve with the continued loop with the pneumatic of a distance greater than 300 feet. Instrument air regulation. Furnace pneumatic instrument invitation required with the air instrument and individual combination filter regulates output. The gauge instrument air should be supplied with the oil less compressor to help eliminate with the control instrument with the device contamination. Electrical characters, electrical interface with the electrical interface between the instrument and the digital control or vary depends on the application type of the analog signal. Range of levels include the following: the milliammeter director current, volt DC, temperatures and voltage alternating current. Transmitter currents commonly range between 4 and 20 milliamp. The DC switches solenoid control commonly use lit switch level at 120 volts AC, and a single requirement instrument loops of the ANSI ISA S50.1 compatible analog signal electrical industrial process instruments. Communication data bus is complete with the boiler control system and with the multiple digital control system with a link together with the communication data bus. The communication data bus unpasses the significant data between the digital control system and the serial format. Numerous bus artifact architectures available to run commonly with the RS-485 with hard bus with Modbus software protocol with refer to TIA-IEA 485 character for the generators, receive the U of the balanced data, digital multiple point system for complete definition of the RS-485 bus. Modbus protocol that is open with the industry. Standard originally created with the defined with the Modcom company. Other industry communication bus standards include Field Bus hardware and software protocol with created with the maintained with the Field Bus Foundation. Field Bus Foundation is a non-profit organization that consists of more than 100 world's leading control instrumentation suppliers and users. DeviceNet, the hardware software protocol standard for the maintained with the output net with the vendor association. The output one open device of the net vendor association, independent organization, closely vendors, members, and users of the distributor of the furniture established. DeviceNet is an open communication networks industry. Augmentation Heart, an open hardware software protocol standard that originally created with defined with the Rosemount Company. Honeywell fine property with a priority hardware software protocol standard that are licensed today. So Honeywell Company. Allen Bradley, familiar properly with the hardware and software protocol standard of the Dataway Highway and Bus. The licensed P products of the Allen Bradley Company. R3 general requirements. General will provide with the control system for the core for the applicable code, the design control system allows for the control medium of the air, electricity, or other leaves of the control for the fail-safe position. Control location. Location, instrument control for the control room, and as much of the practical will provide with the local control panel with the required with the equipment that start up and wherever the constant attendance is not required, turn down. Instruments have the cover the normal operation for the upstate with the conditions. Several instruments may have to provide with the cover of all the range of the important with the instrument with the receive with the covering all operating as well with the upset conditions over the plant design stage. Instrument range. Since the size flow instrument based on the normal operating at approximately 70% with the full scale with the full other information for the normal operating at 50% with the full scale with the following scale flow, the direct reading, the pressure direct reading, the temperature direct reading, level 0 to 100% linear and annualize the direct reading. Suppress range of the temperature may be used as long as the cover the startup of the opposition, the alarm and shutdown, some of the plant control of the void nuisance for the shutdown for the cover the unnecessary item for the interlock for the end of the shutdown, bad design, lack of the provision case for the per hour, or instrumentation air failure with any design with a restart with the case of the shutdown, especially when the cover of the design process, the type of the failure with the interruption power of the instrument air. Her design criteria: use the context opening for the normal abnormal conditions of the alarm and shutdown with the shutdown with the provider with the pre-alarm with the proceed with the shutdown with the provider with the separate device for the alarm shutdown with the do not use the same device the alarm shutdown with the use the control with electrical power with the instrument failure Air failure must shut all fuel required operating personnel of attention with the restart of the testing and service include provision of testing service over the shutdown related arms without interfering with the planned operation. Interlocking safety requirements. Safety controls are needed to protect against the boiler explosion, implosions, interlocking the other safety requirements of the boilers associated with the Association of Society of Mechanical Engineers, National Fire Protection Association, standing with the local and standing with the requirement of the ASME and NFAPA codes. More stringent requirements are more easy prevail. ASME CSD1 control safety device automatically fireable. In NFAPA 85001 single burner boiler operations, 85002 standard prevention furnace explosion impulsion multi-burner boilers, 8503 standard pulverized fuel system. Safety interlocks. Safety interlocks are required but not limited to the listed below. Additional safety locks interlock may be required with the full applicable state with the local code for the power boiler fuel type used. The pre-purge interlock prevents fuel from being emitted with the furnace until the furnace has been thoroughly air purged to remove the residual combustibles. Steam pressure interlock fuel is shut off with the abnormal high pressure boiler. Steam pressure low airflow interlock shuts off with the open low airflow with the combustion of the fan blower with the energy with the draft fan with the forced draft fan. Low fuel supply. Interlock fuel should shut upon with the fuel supply pressure. With the low fuel supply pressure would result in the unstable flame condition, loss of flame. Interlock. All fuel is shut off with the open upon loss of flame with the furnace of the individual burner in the furnace fan. Interlock forced to the draft with the loss of the induction draft fan. Low water interlock shuts off fuel with a low water level in the boiler drum. High combustible interlock shut off fuel with a high combustible. The content and flue gases. Pros purge interlock continues fans operation to remove the residual combustible furnace prior to shutting down the fans. Shutting down the valve vet reset. For the shutting of the valve off the valve, shut off valve of the must be in the manual reset for the type of the should not be operable until all the communicate with the same for the right position. The seek with the interlock with the start with the top of the must also be provided with the provide announcer alarms to the respond with any with the shutdown. Dedicated safety system. Safety shutdown system must be the dedicated independent use of the boiler control for the PLC with the controllers use live design that must contain the PLC safety shutdown with a separate independent one used by the boiler control. Special consideration, special attention should be maintained through the boiler designed to prevent following safety hazards. Equipment must be designed to protect against the electrical shock with exposure. For the control of the boiler, control must assure significant quantity during the pre-purge by airflow through the boiler prior to the ignition of the preventing boiler explosions. Boiler must be assured with a sufficient quantity of the duration post-purge. Airflow for the purge during shutdown with the prevent boiler explosion. Boiler control must assure with a sufficient quantity of the control of the combustion air to prevent excessive fuel during the boiler operation prevent boiler explosion. Boiler control must be limited with the number of the re-entry with the igniting of the boiler pilot, but the must injury standards is allowed 3 attempts to achieve the pilot ignition prior to necessitating a boiler purge cycle. Hardware standard for the defined with the NEMA ICS standards of the industrial control system control with the contractor overload relay were not rated more than 2,000 volts AC or 750 volts DC. Equipment rating classification provided with the instrument rated with the environment electrical components made the design anticipated with the temperature, humidity, inside the closure of the fungus proofing required with the vibration referred to the NEMA ICS 11 safety guidelines anticipating installation maintenance solid state with control of additional information enclosures. Enclosures must be certified by the National Electrical Manufacturer Association for the Environment that will be the NEMA 4 enclosures must be used outdoor location. The enclosures incur corrosive of the environment, space heat with the required with the condensation moisture for the problem. Enclosures are rated. Ratings are defined with the NEMA 250 enclosure electrical equipment at 1,000 volt, maximum NEMA ICS 6 enclosure with the industrial control system enclosure rating summarized in Table 3. Hazard location defined in the National Fire Protection Association 17 in the National Electrical Code. Enclosure must be rated located within which they will be installed with the cost savings achieved with the relocating enclosure with the hardware. Location non-hazard with the summary of the hazard classification files. And show the type and location of the protections against energy, against use and ores and Alright, class definition. Class 1, gas and vapors. Class 2, combustible dust. Class 3, easily ignitable 5 of the flying class for the 1 and 2 with the applicable boiler plant. Class 3 is not. Divisions of definition. Division 1, normal hazard. Division 2, normal, not normally hazard. Division 1, usually not applicable to boiler plants except for the coal handling and fuel storage area. The Division 2 is often applicable. Group definition: Group A is acetylene, Group B is hydrogen and other gases. The equivalent head of the Group C, the ethylene with the other gas of the vapors. Equivalent head of the Group D with the natural gasoline, other vapors with the vapors. Equivalent hazard: Group E, metal dust. Group Group F, the coal dust. Group G, agricultural plastic dust. Group A, B, C, and E and G are not applicable to the boiler plant. Groups D and F are applicable. Special consideration: when specifying enclosure, note the following. Maintenance Group Class 1 Group D with the Division 2 can meet with and provide with an explosion proof of the enclosure to provide with a non-explosion proof of the enclosure, purging it with air. Non-enclosure proof of the enclosures is less expensive with the initial cost, but require with the air supply more attention with the constant air purge that must be maintained. Long-term maintenance is expensive, therefore, with the keep the maintenance for the minimum with the specified with the enclosure for the exponents of the explosion roof. Prove that only the expansion of large equipment should be considered with the Class 1 Group D, the Division 2 with the constant air purge of the system when life cycle cost of the special enclosure will be cycled clearly exceed with the life of the cost of the maintenance of the air purge for the effort to provide with the continuous assurance of safe operation. Special completeness include all the requirements specified with the explosion proof of the explosion, for example, the specified with the closure for the Class 1 Group D with the explosion proof is not just the explosion proof. The explosion proof of the explosion is not necessarily with the dusty type with the suited for outdoor location, therefore, both the explosion proof of the requirement of the weather does not tight, and the requirement must be specified with the define the right enclosures. Power supply. Furnish the power supply with provides clean power with the instrument with this one with the disturbance and nuisance with the shutdown, but the manufacturer should be able to provide equipment to the specification recommend safeguards again for their power disturbance to refer to NEMA ICS 11 safety guideline for the application installation, main solid state control for the additional information, including the following. Provide power supply with enable the control with include the combustion safety guard system for the control of the devices operated through an electrical power interruption of the 20 millisecond without affecting the operation of the plant. Provide the uninterpretable power supply or UPS system to keep the electronic instrument online in case of the power interruption. The required time depends on the plant information, but 30 minutes is often specified. The UPS system must provide with a safe plant shutdown in case of the longer power outage. Small UPS located inside of the control plants should be equipped with ventilator fans to remove the unwanted heat. Can connect all trips. Circulate the UPS system. UPS system is standard with defined with the NEPA and PE uninterruptible power system. Our instrument air provide clean drive with instrument air defined with the ANSI ISSO 01 quality standard with the instrument air with the test instrument air control with the free leaks with the same standard. The wiring and continuities wire must perform with the National Fire Protection Association's Code 78 with the run signal thermal couple of power wiring separate continuities. Wiring alarm shutdown interlock control circuits with some voltage power wiring may be the same with the continuity of the power wiring cable thermal couple of wire must be conformed with the NEMA 4C, WC55, an instrument cable with a thermocouple will provide high point, prevents low point, drains through all continuity. The recommended practice for the control center, the defined ISA recommended practice 16.8, electrical guide with the control centers. Instrumental tubing pipe that do not bring line with the contain with the process of the fluid with the touch with the water and steam with the control panel with the room or boards and the pneumatic signal with the in and out of the control room with the minimum of the use of the electronic signal instead avoid pneumatic signal with the control pressure sensitive air with the short with the pneumatic load instrument with the bleed air with the environment use of the recommended with the practice installation piping tube with the control centers defined by ISA RP 16.9 piping in the control centers. Notification all instrument control with the stainless steel with the metal tag with a permanently mounted with the instrument with include with the instrument number and the service of the identification. Hard nameplates. Provide with the nameplates for the panel instrument with the both of the front with the rear with the panel minimum with the front panel with the it may include with the instrument with the number of the strip with the scale factor with the unit with the rear panel with the required with the instrument number the recommended practice with the panel nameplates defined with the ISA RP 66. Nameplate label with tags and control centers terminations. Identify each electrical tubing terminal with the instrumented item, the number of which for the connected tag and terminals are all at the end of the wires. Identify all electrical conduits, type of the wiring, power, thermal couple of DC signals, the other instrument. Identify local instrument touch of the valves and switch of the item, the number of the instrument with which it operates. Instrument and specifications. Use instrument and specification form of the ordering instrument with the form of the specification checklist for the number of the instrument to provide with the ISA S20. The specification forms pressure measurements, control instrument, the primary elements, control valve to obtain the complete information instrument with the manufacturer before ordering. Source of the information may include with the manufacturer catalogs, data sheet with the other literature provided with all the data required to ordering instruments. Specific all items include optional selections of deviation with the manufacturer standards. Drawings view the drawing standards, symbol of the standard, symbol of the presentation terminal. We refer to the following industry standards: ASI, ISA S51's industrial symbol identification, ISA S53. Graphic symbols of the distributed control shared display instrument logic computer system, ASI, ISA S4 instrument loop diagrams. Provide control schematic diagrams, logic diagram of the instrument, loop diagrams, code requirement, local state of the requirements for the different from the ASME, ISI, NFPA codes for the more stringent requirements which shall prevail with the following codes apply. ASMEN gives some codes. Hard standardization standards all instrument with the boiler plan specify that all the instrument the serve of the control valve the provide with the same of the manufacturer of the how the control valve with the different and identical serve with the two different manufacturers for the same manufacturer for the two different model numbers. Manufacturers sell with a different type of the instrument. The instrumentation site with the same type of the but must be with the standardized. For example, the control with the obtained with the one manufacturer control with the valve with the second manufacturer, pressure gauge with the third manufacturer. Package equipment. The package equipment is often one furnished for the instrument when included, but it does not always leave with a stabilized standardization reason for the combined with the package manufacturer stand with the however that might result with the considerable cost save with the even package equipment. However, the instrument should conform with the plant standard whenever the practical. The less consideration also standard is found with the boiler plant. Signal amplitude standard signal with the 420 milliamp DC with the transmit with the controls of valves and the 120 volt AC with the switches. 315 psi gauge pneumatic signals connection with the use of the standard type of connection side with the AF void non-standard connections. Recorders standardized the record charts of the record pens with the lamps. The similar item with the note with the record with the two different manufacturers must likely require different chart paper and pens. Environmental concerns. Environmental protection agency regulate with the maximum allowed emission with the external combustion for the clue with the boilers. EPA AP 420 with the 42 compilation of the air pollutant the emission factors that contain the information associated with the type of the quality of the emission method of the control of the allowable emission limits varies for the local and standard regulation conditions and all of the COVID regulation Title 40 protection of the environment with the regulated limitation monitoring form of the following area for the criteria pollutants associated with the burning of the fuel of the boilers. Particulate matter with the surface of sulfur oxide, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, organic compounds. Some of the common methods to minimize and reduce these emissions include fuel gas and recirculation, low NOx, and burners, wet scrubber with cyclone, separated selective and non-selective catalytic reduction, electrostatic precipitator, baghouse. Safety plan and hazard study with the boiler controls must include the safety plan hazards operative study submitted with the boiler design control loops. General with the provide control according to the applicable code for the codes intended for the to proceed precedence over the control of the equipment and is shown as in the course of typical control loop is shown in figure 4.1. Control loop types. Some control loop include with the control variable to send for the control variable to transmit with the control of the automatic manual control station, the final control element. Control loops used with the spill over the maybe pressure for the temperature, liquid level type or flow type. Pressure control loops may be used with the control of the boiler fluid and pressure for the fluid oil, pressure for the control of the boiler, pressure for final control eliminates the regulates fluid flow, fuel flow over the boiler, respond for the boiler drum, steam pressure for the flow, for the control of the fuel oil pressure, following the control of the element, U for the pressure reducing control valve that regulates the response for the downstream pressure for the table of the pressure control loop shown in figure 4.2. Temperature control loop, there may be U for the control of the steam pressure for the temperature for the boiler, for the fuel oil temperature for the fuel oil heaters, typically the temperature control loop shown in figure 4.3. Level liquid level the control loops may be U for the control boiler drum water level the typical level control loop shown in figure 4.4. 4.4 flow control loops may be U for the control flow fuel flow into the boiler burner draft air flow feed water into the boiler and steam flowing out of the boiler. Typical airflow control loop is shown in figure 4 or 5. Alright, air to fuel ratio. Furnace control of the automatic provide with the proper fuel with the air ratio with the entire boiling operating range maximum turn down to for the maximum continuous rating with the provide with the continuous limited lead lag controls between the air and fuel with an increase of the airflow with the increase of the fuel flow with the decrease of the fuel flow with the forward decreasing airflow with the fuel metering cross controls which may with the directly both airflow and the fuel flow with the air boilers capacity for the greater than 500 million BTUs an hour. Consider the oxide analyzed with the trim only for all the boilers capacity with greater than 24 million BTUs an hour. Consider carbon monoxide triple the oil boilers of the capacity greater than 500 million BTUs an hour. Especially coal-fired ones of even evaluate the signal savings measure with the provide with the life cycle of the cost-effective typical cost limited lead to lag boiler control system with the oxygen trim of the signal fuel shown figure 4.6. Alright, control configuration, configuration control show so the air fuel does not have the manual reset reprogram that within the switching one with the field and another one combination with the field to the other. Provide with the 8-point minimum fuel characterization curve that each of the fuel combination fuels. Provide with the control of the airflow, flow, air to fuel ratio, automatically adjust the proper proportions all fouling. Load chain with the minimum firing of the MCR. The fuel chain with either chain of fuel with the same fuel but different specification. Fuel rate change more than one fuel firing. Our fuel changeover. The complex switch over the one fuel with the other without shutting down the boiler. Configure the control for the change over the one fuel with another being made with either selector switch with the push button with the enter with the command with the keyboard with the simultaneously fuel firing. Provide automatic control for the maintain with the proper fuel ratio. Fuel the air ratio compensate with the load range when the firing several fuels in at the same time. Not allow multiple attempts to switch for the fuel without the full post purge, pre purge with after each unsuccessful switch is attempt. Alarm. Furnish an alarm with the announcement of the approach of the unsafe condition. Post for the provide shutdown with the suit. Shut the equipment down with the unusual condition. Our boiler drum level. The provider of the controls will always maintain the boiler drum level. The boiler manufacturer specification under all operation conditions. The 3 types of control switch systems of boiler pump are single element, 2 element, and 3 element, shown in figure 4, 7, 4, 8, and 4, 9, respectively. Single element control systems utilize the level to transmit the main control boiler drum water level to you with a single element control. You only the boiler is operating in a steady load. 2 element control system utilize the level of the transmitter amount with the steam boiler of the boiler. Maintain with the control boiler drum at 2 element control provides the sum of the compensation variable load, but it does not adequately correct with the expansion of the water within the boiler due to the degree of the boiler pressure for the curve of the large amount of steam required for the contraction of heated water within the boiler. In addition, with the cold feed water, that do not use the 2 control element controls. 3 element control. The 3 element control utilize the level of the transmit of the amount of steam flow over the boiler, with the amount of the water within the boiler. The maintain with the control of the boiler drum water level. Although not shown with the steam flow over the boiler, is usually compensated with the pressure for the temperature of the 3 element control system. Correct with the problems associated with the 2 element control system. Provide with the method for the compensating variable loads. Multi-boilers. The output of the multi-boilers accomplished routing the steam of the individual boiler with the common plant output header. Pressure is met with the plant output header, but there will be feedback with each individual boiler control loop. Control is maintained with the plant master of the cascading with the output of the boiler master that achieved desired steam output. The typical multi-boiler control loop is shown in figure 410 with the dual pressure indicating transmitter PIT, pressure indicating controls PIC are shown in feeding the other output signals into a high select relay. The redundancy may be provided with the plans for 3 or more boilers to allow the continued operation during the failure of pressure indicating temp transmitter and pressure indicating controllers. And it shows a picture of your symbol of the typical control loop, which was control air supply, control valve, process line, pressure control, pressure transmitter. Control air supply, steam supply, air and control valve, temperature control, temperature transmitter, temperature detector. Control air pressure, pressure line, control valve, level, controller level, transmitter, tank. Flow transmitter, control air, process line, control valve, flow control. It shows a picture of a typical cross system boiler control single fuel using fuel metering, oxygen, and trim. Single element drum level control system. Then another 2 element drum level control system. Alright, 3 element drum level control system. Multi-boiler control loop plant and master. And then it goes into the references, and that completes. There's a lot of references as you can read. Then the quiz, and that completes the boiler control system introduction. I believe that was what it was. Testing.